So this is my miter sled. It actually runs in the tracks of the table saw itself, as you can see. So I'm perfectly lined up each time, parallel to the blade. And my process is this. I've got a zero kerf insert to this, and I bring my board right to my pencil line, if you can see that. And then as I run it through the table saw, I know where my line is going to be. As I come through, you can see I get a perfect cut. After my cut, I slide it away from the blade. Then I go to the other side. I've got a pencil line there. Line it up to my zero kerf. And then run it through. See a perfect cut. Come back. And now, when I'm done, I've got a perfect 45 on both angles, as you can see. So, I encourage you to make one. Makes picture frames almost perfect to make, and then you just have some slight sanding to do. Otherwise, you'll wind up using the block plane, and that just is very tedious and very time consuming, and you don't always get a good cut. So, I'm going to go cut some more, and we'll show you the final product. With all three picture frames cut, let's go check our measurements. So, rabbets have been cut, miters have been cut, it's all put together. What we said we wanted to do was have a picture frame that had a final dimension of 24 by 28, space for the mat of 20 by 24, and then the ultimate picture is 16 by 20. So this won't be perfect because it's not glued up, but what you'll be able to see on the picture frame is we are definitely right at the 28 mark. Our inside measurement is sitting right at 24. With the rabbet, that puts us at 24 and a half, so we'll have room for the rabbet. So one of the steps we had to go through was to actually do some cleanup. So what can happen is when you're making your cuts on the inside of the rabbets, it's not perfectly clean. I'm lucky enough to be able to have rabbet planes that I was able to run them through and actually clean them up, get nice tight edges. So this rabbet plane is an actual number 92, which is the right size for that type of measurements. This is a larger one, a number 93. And the only reason why I show you this one, because I think it's pretty cool, is right on the edge of it, if you look real close, it says Arbin J. That's my grandfather. He ran a cabinet shop in Boston, and I'm lucky enough to have some of his tools. So with this now set, our next steps are going to be to glue them up. As you can see, I'm lucky enough to have some cabinet corner clamps. I have enough for 2. I'll glue them up, and then we'll give it a sand, and then we'll cut the miters for the corners. So, more to come. With the cleanup complete, I cleaned up the rabbets and gave it a quick sand, just a really light sand. It was time for glue up. As you can tell, this frame is now glued up, and I'm using corner clamps. And the corner clamps work super well because what they do is they help you line in and get a nice tight 90-degree angle. This was glued up just a little bit ago, so I'm going to need to go through and clean up the glue. And they actually came in pretty tight to one another. Now, don't be afraid if you don't have corner clamps, because you have other options. You can make your own. I had some other corner clamps that I made that are just simply a 3/4 inch piece of plywood with angled boards, and with a couple of clamps on the sides, you get your 90-degree. One of the things you may notice underneath is wax paper. The purpose behind the wax paper is so that when the glue does come down through the actual miter joint itself, you don't want it to stick to the plywood. And by having the wax paper on there, it glues to the wax paper as opposed to the frame itself. So these two are gluing up. As soon as they're done, I'm going to take them out and make the final set. So almost there. So glue setup is complete. What I've done now is gone through and given each side of the frame a sand, and I use both a 150 and a 100 grit paper. I start with the 100 and then finish off with a 150. Once I'm done, what I tend to do just to make sure it gets cleaned up well is I use paint thinner, and using the rag just come through and wipe down to make sure I get all the dust off. And what that does is it gives you, if you were going to be doing just a pure polyurethane finish, it gives you a perspective of what the finish would look like. I personally am going to use a white stain for this to get a nice Cape Cod look. We're going to do that step next. My choice for stain is going to be the Old Meister penetrating white pickling stain. We've actually used this on a couple of projects, and we've got about half a can left, and that's going to work out for us. So what I'm going to use is a foam brush, which I don't typically use, but I just don't feel like cleaning a brush this time. What I'll be doing is dipping in the pan, and then coming across and ensuring even strokes. Once it's on, what I'll then do is do a back wipe, just to let it soak in for a little bit, then do a back wipe, and we'll see how the process goes. I'm not going to film that part. I think most folks know how to do that, but stay tuned and you'll see what the finished product looks like. So staining is complete. We have all 3 frames been wiped down. As I said, I used a 1-inch foam brush with the Old Meister's penetrating pickling stain, which was left over from a couple of projects we had done. We actually done a floor, and we'd also done a dry sink that we have up in our kitchen. But again, this was cedar. I did a wipe down with a foam brush on all sides, and then let the stain sit for about 10 minutes, and then gave it a wipe off. And I really like the color that we've gotten out of it. You can see the knots that are there. While they stand out, the stain has really absorbed well into them and given a nice kind of a driftwood Cape Cod look. So next steps for me, once this is dry, I'll put on a couple coats of latex-based polyurethane, only because I have some left over. So we'll use that on the project. We'll wipe it down with some steel wool afterwards, and then we'll mount the pictures. I hope you have found this video tutorial a little bit informative, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. And I do have a few other videos on my page, so please feel free to subscribe, and who knows, I may be able to post something that you find interesting and or informative. Thanks again for watching.